Have you ever had one of those days where everything goes so wrong that you start wondering if the universe itself woke up and decided to personally attack you? Well, this is the story of the most unlucky man in the world, a guy named Jake, who turned one simple normal day into the most chaotic adventure of his entire life. It all started on a Monday morning, the most dangerous day known to humanity. Jake woke up late because instead of setting his alarm for 7 a.m., he accidentally set it for 7 p.m. When he opened his eyes and saw the time, he jumped out of bed so fast that he somehow managed to scare himself in the mirror. He grabbed the first clothes he could find, ran outside, and only after reaching the bus stop realized he was wearing two completely different shoes. One was a black work shoe, the other was a bright red running shoe. But Jake was already too late to care. He told himself, maybe nobody will notice. Of course, that was the exact moment when a little kid pointed at him and yelled, "Mom, that man lost a fight with his closet." Everyone started laughing, and Jake knew the day was just beginning. When the bus arrived, Jake proudly walked inside, reached into his pocket to pay, and discovered he had brought his TV remote instead of his wallet. The bus driver looked at him. Jake looked at the remote. For a few seconds, nobody said anything. Then Jake pressed the power button and said, "Maybe this turns the bus on?" The driver laughed so hard he actually let him ride for free. Jake thought his luck was finally changing. He was wrong. Very wrong. When he arrived at work, he tried to sneak quietly to his desk, but his boss was already waiting. His boss was the kind of person who noticed everything. A person could change one letter in a report from 3 years ago and somehow he would know. The boss looked at Jake's shoes, looked at his messy hair, looked at the TV remote sticking out of his pocket, and simply asked, "Do I even want to know?" Jake answered, "Probably not." The boss sighed and told him there was an extremely important meeting in 5 minutes with the biggest client of the year. Jake rushed to prepare, grabbed his laptop, walked confidently into the meeting room, connected it to the big screen, and prepared to show his professional presentation. But there was one small problem. Instead of opening his business presentation, the laptop opened the last thing he watched the night before, a video titled "Top 10 Funniest Cats Who Think They Are Humans." The room went completely silent as a giant cat wearing sunglasses appeared on the screen. Jake froze. The client stared. His boss looked like his soul had left his body. Jake quickly tried to close it, but the computer froze at the worst possible moment. The cat stayed there, staring at everyone. After the longest 10 seconds of Jake's life, one of the clients started laughing. Then another one. Soon the entire room was laughing. Somehow, the funny mistake made everyone relax, and the meeting actually went better than expected. The clients loved Jake because they said he was different and creative. Jake walked out feeling like a genius. He thought maybe being unlucky was actually his superpower. But after work, things became even crazier. On the way home, Jake stopped at a small restaurant to celebrate surviving the day. He ordered food, sat down, and finally relaxed. But then a stranger walked up to him and said, "Finally, I found you." Jake looked confused. "Found me?" The stranger smiled and said, "You were the guy from the internet." Jake had no idea what he was talking about. Then the stranger showed him a video online. Someone from the morning bus had recorded Jake trying to pay with a TV remote, and now millions of people were watching it. The title said, "Man Tries to Control Bus with Remote." Jake almost dropped his phone. He had become famous for the dumbest reason possible. Jake stared at the video in complete disbelief. Millions of people around the world were laughing at him pressing a TV remote on a bus like he was trying to change the channel of real life. He expected people to make fun of him forever, but something strange happened. Everyone loved it. Comments started appearing saying, "This guy is living like a cartoon character," and "We need more Jake adventures." For the first time in his life, being unlucky actually made him popular. The next morning, Jake woke up feeling confident. He thought, maybe yesterday was the beginning of something amazing. He carefully prepared everything. Same shoes, wallet in pocket, alarm correctly set, everything was perfect. Nothing could go wrong. At least that's what he thought. When he walked outside, a bird immediately dropped something directly onto his clean shirt. Jake looked up at the sky and said, "Really? We started already?" He went back, changed clothes, and continued his day. Because of his new internet fame, a local news channel invited him for an interview. They wanted to meet the man who tried to control a bus with a remote. Jake was nervous but excited. This was his chance to show everyone he was actually a normal person. Before going live, he told himself one simple rule: don't do anything weird. The interview started perfectly. The host asked him questions. Jake made everyone laugh, and the audience loved him. Then the host asked, "So, Jake, do funny accidents happen to you often?" Jake smiled and said, "Not really. I think yesterday was just bad luck." At that exact moment, his chair suddenly broke and slowly lowered until only his head was visible above the table. The entire studio went silent. Jake looked into the camera and said, "Okay, maybe sometimes." Everyone exploded with laughter. The clip went viral again. Now Jake was not just the remote guy, he was becoming famous as the unluckiest lucky person alive. Companies started contacting him, people recognized him in public, and everyone wanted to see what would happen next. But Jake still had one problem. He was invited to a huge event where thousands of people would watch him speak on stage. He wanted this time to prove that he could do something without a disaster happening. He prepared for weeks. He practiced his speech, checked everything twice, and arrived early. Everything looked perfect. When he walked onto the stage, the crowd cheered. Jake smiled because finally, for once, nothing embarrassing happened. He started his speech about how sometimes your biggest mistakes can become your greatest opportunities. The crowd listened carefully. It was actually inspiring. But right before the final sentence, the microphone started making strange noises. Then somehow it connected to someone's phone backstage and started playing a random song at full volume. Jake stopped. The crowd waited to see what he would do. The old Jake would have panicked, but the new Jake simply smiled and started dancing. The entire audience joined him. What should have been another disaster became the best moment of the night. That was when Jake finally understood something important. He spent his whole life trying to avoid mistakes, trying to be perfect, and trying to make sure nothing embarrassing happened. But the truth was, the moments that went wrong created the best stories. Years later, Jake became known around the world, not because he was perfect, but because he showed people that sometimes life is funnier when things don't go according to plan. And somewhere in his house, he still kept that old TV remote, the same remote that accidentally started everything. He never used it for his TV again. Instead, he kept it in a glass box with a sign underneath that said, "The remote that changed my life." Because sometimes the most ridiculous moments are the ones that take you exactly where you were supposed to go.